In the bustling city of New York, where dreams are born and shattered every day, lived a young woman named Emily Thompson. With her chestnut hair and warm brown eyes, Emily possessed a beauty that radiated from within, a stark contrast to the cold, unforgiving world around her. Emily's life had been far from easy. Raised in the Bronx by her single mother, Sarah, she had known poverty and struggle from an early age. Yet, despite the hardships, Emily's spirit remained unbroken, her heart filled with kindness and compassion for others. Every morning, Emily would wake before dawn to help her mother prepare for her job as a cleaning lady in the towering skyscrapers of Manhattan. As she watched her mother's hands, calloused and worn from years of hard work, Emily vowed to create a better life for them both. "One day, Mama," she would say, her eyes shining with determination, "we'll live in one of those big apartments you clean. You'll never have to scrub another floor again." Sarah would smile tiredly, patting her daughter's cheek. "Oh, my sweet Emily. Your dreams are as big as your heart. But remember, no matter where life takes you, never lose sight of who you are." Little did Emily know that her life was about to change dramatically, setting in motion a series of events that would test her resolve, challenge her beliefs, and ultimately lead her to a destiny beyond her wildest imagination. It was on a crisp autumn morning when fate intervened. Emily, rushing to her job as a waitress at a small diner, collided with a tall, handsome stranger on the crowded sidewalk. Papers flew everywhere, and as they both scrambled to gather them, their eyes met. "I'm so sorry," Emily apologized, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. "I wasn't watching where I was going." The man, dressed in an impeccable suit that screamed wealth and privilege, found himself captivated by Emily's genuine remorse and natural beauty. "No harm done," he replied with a charming smile. "I'm James Blackwood." Emily's heart skipped a beat as she recognized the name. The Blackwoods were one of New York's most prominent families, their name synonymous with old money and influence. "I'm Emily," she managed to stammer, suddenly acutely aware of her worn waitress uniform. James, however, seemed oblivious to the stark contrast between them. "Emily," he repeated, as if savoring the name. "Would you like to have coffee with me sometime?" Thrown off balance by the unexpected invitation, Emily hesitated. Every instinct told her that their worlds were too different, that nothing good could come from mixing with people so far above her station. But there was something in James's eyes, a warmth that seemed to bridge the gap between their social classes. I'd like that," she found herself saying, her voice barely above a whisper. As Emily hurried away, her mind reeling from the encounter, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change forever. Little did she know the trials and tribulations that lay ahead, the cruelty she would face, and the strength she would need to find within herself. Over the next few weeks, Emily and James's relationship blossomed like a flower reaching for the sun. They met for coffee, went for walks in Central Park, and shared their hopes and dreams. Emily found herself falling deeply in love, swept away by James's charm and the promise of a life she had only dared to imagine in her most secret fantasies. James, too, seemed enamored, captivated by Emily's pure heart and unwavering spirit. He spoke of a future together, of breaking free from the expectations of his family and building something real, something true. "You're unlike anyone I've ever met, Emily," James would say, his blue eyes intense with emotion. "You see the world in a way that makes me want to be a better man." But as their love grew stronger, so did the whispers and disapproving glances from James's social circle. The Blackwood family, led by James's formidable mother, Victoria, viewed Emily as nothing more than a gold digger, a common girl trying to claw her way into their privileged world. Victoria Blackwood was a force to be reckoned with, a woman who had dedicated her life to maintaining the family's social standing and legacy. The thought of her only son becoming entangled with a waitress from the Bronx was simply unacceptable. One evening, as Emily prepared for a dinner at the Blackwood mansion, her mother watched her with concern. "Be careful, Mija," Sarah warned, using the Spanish term of endearment from her own childhood. "People like that, they don't see us as equals. They can be cruel." Emily kissed her mother's cheek, her eyes shining with naive optimism. "James is different, Mama. He loves me for who I am. You'll see." But as Emily stepped into the opulent world of the Blackwoods that night, she had no idea of the humiliation and heartbreak that awaited her. The glittering chandeliers and priceless artwork seemed to mock her simple dress and unrefined manners. Every word she spoke, every move she made, was scrutinized and found wanting. Victoria Blackwood, resplendent in her designer gown and dripping with diamonds, fixed Emily with a cold stare. "So, Emily," she said, her voice dripping with disdain, "tell us about your background. What exactly are your intentions with my son?" Emily felt her cheeks burn with shame as all eyes turned to her. She looked to James for support, but found him suddenly engrossed in his wine glass, unable to meet her gaze. As the night wore on, the subtle jabs became more overt, the mask of civility slipping to reveal the ugly prejudice beneath. Emily endured it all, holding her head high, reminding herself of her mother's words about staying true to who she was. But the final blow came when she overheard a conversation between James and his mother in the study. "She's a lovely girl, James," Victoria was saying, her voice sickeningly sweet, "but surely you can see this is just a phase. Someone like her could never truly fit into our world. Think of the family, darling. Think of your future." Emily's heart shattered as she waited for James to defend her, to stand up for their love. But his response, when it came, was like a knife to her soul. "You're right, Mother," James sighed. "I've been foolish. Emily is, she's not one of us. I'll end it, I promise." Tears streaming down her face, Emily fled from the mansion, her dreams lying in ruins around her. As she ran through the rain-soaked streets of New York, she vowed that this would not break her. Somehow, someway, she would rise above this humiliation and show the world, and the Blackwoods, that true worth came from the content of one's character, not the size of their bank account. Little did Emily know that this night of despair was just the beginning of her journey. In the depths of her pain, a seed of determination took root, one that would grow into a strength she never knew she possessed. The stage was set for a tale of resilience, redemption, and a love that would defy all expectations. As the city lights blurred through her tears, Emily Thompson made a silent promise to herself. She would not only survive this ordeal but emerge stronger, wiser, and victorious. The world that had sought to crush her spirit would soon learn the power of a woman scorned and the indomitable strength of a truly humble heart. The weeks following that fateful night at the Blackwood mansion were the darkest of Emily Thompson's life. Each day, she dragged herself to work at the diner, forcing a smile for the customers while her heart ached with every beat. The whispers and pitying glances from her co-workers only added salt to her wounds. "Did you hear?" they'd murmur when they thought she couldn't hear. "Poor Emily. Thought she could marry into the Blackwood family. As if someone like her ever had a chance." But Emily refused to let their words break her. She held her head high, channeling her pain into determination. "I'll show them," she whispered to herself each night, staring at her reflection in the cracked mirror of her tiny apartment. "I'll show them all what Emily Thompson is made of." It was during one of these moments of quiet resolve that fate intervened once again. As Emily wiped down tables after a long shift, an elegantly dressed woman entered the diner. Her silver hair was swept into a chic updo, and her eyes, sharp and intelligent, surveyed the room before settling on Emily. "Excuse me," the woman said, her voice carrying an air of authority. "Are you Emily Thompson?" Emily straightened, her heart pounding. Had the Blackwoods sent someone to further humiliate her? "Yes, I am," she replied, her voice steady despite her fears. The woman's face softened into a smile. "My name is Eleanor Grant. I believe we need to talk. Over coffee in a quiet booth, Eleanor revealed a truth that would change Emily's life forever. She was Emily's grandmother, her father's mother, and she had been searching for Emily for years. Your father, Michael, was my only child, Eleanor explained, her eyes misting with old grief. He fell in love with your mother against my wishes. I was like Victoria Blackwood back then. Proud, foolish, unable to see beyond social status. When Michael chose to marry Sarah, I disowned him. Emily listened, stunned, as Eleanor continued her tale. Her father had died in a car accident when Emily was just a baby, never having reconciled with his mother. Sarah, heartbroken and struggling to make ends meet, had chosen to keep Emily away from the grandmother who had rejected them. It wasn't until I lost everything that I realized how wrong I'd been, Eleanor said, reaching for Emily's hand. The financial crisis wiped out my fortune, and suddenly, I understood what truly mattered in life. I've spent years trying to find you, to make amends. And now, seeing you here, I can't help but think that perhaps this is my chance at redemption. Emily's mind reeled with the implications. All her life, she believed she had no family beyond her mother. And now, here was this elegant woman, offering a connection to the father she'd never known. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, Eleanor said softly. But I'd like the chance to get to know you, to be a part of your life. And perhaps, to help you achieve your dreams. It turned out that Eleanor, though no longer wealthy, had maintained connections in the fashion industry from her days as a socialite. She offered Emily an opportunity, an internship at Glamour and Grace, one of New York's top fashion magazines. It won't be easy, Eleanor warned. You'll start at the bottom, and you'll have to work harder than you've ever worked before. But if you're willing to learn, to push yourself, this could be your chance to build the life you've always wanted. Emily hesitated, torn between her instinct to trust and the fear of being hurt again. But as she looked into Eleanor's eyes, she saw genuine remorse and a flicker of the same determination that burned within her own heart. I'll do it, Emily said finally, her voice firm with resolve. I'll show them all what I'm capable of. The next few months were a whirlwind of change for Emily. By day, she threw herself into her new role at Glamour and Grace, absorbing everything she could about the fashion industry. By night, she studied, taking online courses in business and design to supplement her on-the-job learning. It wasn't easy. The world of high fashion was cutthroat, filled with ambitious young women from privileged backgrounds who viewed Emily as an interloper. Her immediate superior, a sharp-tongued junior editor named Vanessa, seemed to take particular pleasure in assigning Emily the most menial and exhausting tasks. "Oh, Emily," Vanessa would say, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "be a dear and reorganize the entire accessories closet, won't you? And when you're done, I need 300 copies of this report. In color, of course." But Emily refused to be deterred. She completed every task with a smile, no matter how demeaning, and slowly began to make allies among the other interns and junior staff. Her natural eye for color and style, honed by years of making the most of her limited wardrobe, began to catch the attention of some of the senior editors. Through it all, Eleanor was a constant source of support and guidance. The two women grew closer, healing old wounds and building a relationship that filled a void in both their hearts. Eleanor shared stories of Michael, helping Emily connect with the father she'd never known, while Emily's unwavering spirit and kindness helped Eleanor find purpose in her twilight years. It was Eleanor who encouraged Emily to submit her own designs to the magazine's annual Fresh Faces in Fashion contest. "You have a gift, my dear," she insisted. "It's time the world saw it." Nervously, Emily poured her heart into her designs, drawing inspiration from her humble roots and the vibrant spirit of her Bronx neighborhood. Her collection, titled Beauty in the Struggle, featured innovative uses of everyday materials transformed into haute couture masterpieces. The night of the contest reveal, Emily stood in the back of the crowded auditorium, her heart pounding as the winners were announced. When her name was called for first place, the room fell silent for a moment before erupting into applause. As she made her way to the stage, legs shaking, Emily caught sight of a familiar face in the crowd, James Blackwood. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and Emily saw a flicker of recognition and regret cross his features. But as she accepted her award, her designs projected on the screen behind her, Emily realized that James's opinion no longer mattered. She had found her own path, her own strength, and nothing could take that away from her. The win catapulted Emily into the spotlight. Suddenly, the girl who had once been deemed unworthy of the Blackwood family was the talk of New York's fashion elite. Offers for collaborations and exclusive contracts poured in, and Emily found herself facing a future brighter than she'd ever dared to dream. But with success came new challenges. As Emily navigated her rising career, she found herself drawn into a world of glamour and excess that tested her values and threatened to change the very essence of who she was. It was at the height of Fashion Week, at a glittering party celebrating her latest collection, that Emily's past and present collided in spectacular fashion. As she circulated among the city's elite, accepting congratulations and fielding business proposals, she spotted Victoria Blackwood holding court in a corner of the room. The older woman's eyes widened in recognition, a sneer forming on her perfectly made-up face. Well, Victoria said loudly, silencing those around her. If it isn't the little waitress who thought she could buy her way into our world. Tell me, dear, how many backs did you have to stab to claw your way up here? A hush fell over the nearby partygoers, all eyes turning to Emily. For a moment, she was transported back to that humiliating night at the Blackwood mansion, feeling small and out of place. But then she felt a gentle hand on her arm and turned to see Eleanor standing beside her, eyes blazing with protective fury. Drawing strength from her grandmother's presence, Emily squared her shoulders and met Victoria's gaze. "Mrs. Blackwood," she said, her voice clear and confident. "I'm glad you're here to see what a girl from the Bronx can achieve through hard work and talent. I may not have been born into your world, but I've earned my place in it, without compromising who I am or where I come from." A ripple of admiration went through the crowd. Victoria's face flushed with anger, but before she could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. "She's right, Mother," James Blackwood said, stepping forward. He looked at Emily, his eyes filled with remorse. "Emily, I owe you an apology. I was a coward, too weak to stand up for what I knew was right. Watching you rise, seeing the impact you've made in this industry, it's made me realize how foolish I was to let you go." Emily felt a flutter in her chest, the old feelings threatening to resurface. But as she looked at James, she realized that the love she'd felt for him had been transformed by her experiences. She no longer needed his approval or acceptance to feel worthy. "Thank you, James," she said softly. "I hope you've learned from this, as I have. We all deserve to be with someone who values us for who we are, not for who others expect us to be." With that, Emily turned away, linking her arm with Eleanor's. As they walked through the partygoers, many of whom were now looking at Emily with newfound respect, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had faced her past, stood up to those who had once made her feel small, and emerged stronger for it. But Emily's journey was far from over. As she basked in the glow of her success, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. The glittering world of high fashion, with its emphasis on appearance and status, began to feel hollow. She thought of her mother, still working long hours as a cleaning lady, and of the struggles faced by so many in her old neighborhood. "There has to be a way to use my success to make a real difference," Emily mused to Eleanor one evening as they shared a quiet dinner. Eleanor smiled, a glimmer of pride in her eyes. "I was hoping you'd say that, my dear. Your father always believed that true success meant lifting others up along with you. Perhaps it's time for Emily Thompson to redefine what it means to be a fashion icon." As the ideas began to form in Emily's mind, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had overcome adversity, proven her worth to those who had doubted her, and now she had the opportunity to create lasting change. The girl from the Bronx who had once been scorned by society's elite was poised to revolutionize not just fashion, but the very notion of success itself. Little did Emily know that her greatest challenges and her greatest triumphs still lay ahead. The path she was about to embark on would test her resolve, challenge her integrity, and ultimately lead her to a destiny far beyond anything she had ever imagined. The fashion world was about to be turned upside down, and at the center of it all would be a young woman with a heart of gold and an unbreakable spirit. As the city lights twinkled outside her window, Emily Thompson smiled to herself. She had come so far, but deep in her heart, she knew this was just the beginning. The best was yet to come, and she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with grace, determination, and the unwavering belief in the power of kindness and perseverance. As the sun rose over the New York skyline, casting a golden glow across the city, Emily Thompson stood at the window of her penthouse office, her mind racing with possibilities. In the months since her confrontation with Victoria Blackwood, Emily had thrown herself into her work with renewed passion and purpose. Her latest collection, Empowered Elegance, had taken the fashion world by storm. But it wasn't just the innovative designs that had people talking, it was Emily's revolutionary approach to the entire industry. "We're going to change the face of fashion," Emily announced to her team, her eyes shining with determination. "It's time we use our platform to make a real difference in people's lives." Emily's vision was bold, a fashion line that not only celebrated diversity in all its forms but also provided opportunities for underprivileged youth to enter the industry. She partnered with community organizations in the Bronx and other underserved neighborhoods, offering internships, scholarships, and mentorship programs. But not everyone was thrilled with Emily's new direction. Vanessa, her former tormentor who now worked under her, watched Emily's rise with barely concealed resentment. "How quaint," Vanessa sneered one day, eyeing the group of inner-city teens touring the office. "I didn't realize we were running a charity here." "What's next, Emily? Designing ball gowns for the homeless?" Emily fixed Vanessa with a steady gaze. "Fashion has the power to transform lives, Vanessa. It's about time we used that power for something meaningful." As Emily's influence grew, so did the pushback from the old guard of the fashion industry. Many viewed her efforts as a threat to the exclusivity that had long been their hallmark. Whispers circulated at events, questioning whether Emily's success was merely a flash in the pan, a publicity stunt that would soon fade. But Emily refused to be deterred. With Eleanor by her side, offering wisdom and support, she pressed forward with her plans. She launched a line of affordable, high-quality basics that brought designer style to the masses. She implemented ethical manufacturing practices, ensuring fair wages and safe working conditions for all involved in producing her clothes. It was during this time of intense work and scrutiny that a new figure entered Emily's life. Alexander Reeves, a charismatic tech entrepreneur, approached her with a proposition. "I've been watching your work, Emily," Alexander said, his green eyes intense as they sat in a sleek Manhattan restaurant. "What you're doing, it's revolutionary. I want to help take it to the next level." Alexander proposed a partnership, combining Emily's fashion expertise with his tech innovations to create smart, sustainable clothing accessible to all. The potential was enormous, but as Emily listened to his pitch, she couldn't shake a feeling of unease. "This could change everything," Alexander urged, reaching for her hand across the table. "Together, we could build an empire." Emily pulled her hand back gently, her mind whirling. "It's an interesting proposal, Alexander. But I'll need time to think it over. This isn't just about building an empire for me. It's about staying true to my vision." As she left the restaurant, Emily felt torn. Alexander's offer was tempting. It would provide the resources to expand her initiatives beyond her wildest dreams. But something about his eagerness, the glint in his eye when he spoke of profits and market domination, made her hesitate. That night, as Emily shared her conflicted feelings with Eleanor over a cup of tea, her grandmother offered a word of caution. "Remember, my dear," Eleanor said softly, "not everyone who offers you the world has your best interests at heart. Trust your instincts. They've brought you this far." Emily nodded, grateful as always for Eleanor's wisdom. But before she could make a decision about Alexander's offer, a crisis erupted that threatened everything she had built. A scathing exposé appeared in a prominent fashion magazine, accusing Emily of exploiting the very communities she claimed to be helping. The article, filled with anonymous sources and half-truths, painted her as a fraud who used social causes as a marketing ploy while secretly cutting corners and mistreating workers. The fashion world, always hungry for scandal, pounced on the story. Overnight, Emily found herself at the center of a media firestorm. Former allies distanced themselves, afraid of being tainted by association. Even some of the young people she had mentored began to doubt her sincerity. As Emily struggled to defend herself against the onslaught of accusations, she couldn't shake the feeling that this attack was too well orchestrated to be a coincidence. But who would want to destroy her like this? And why? The answer came in the form of a late-night phone call from an unexpected source. James Blackwood's voice was urgent on the other end of the line. "Emily, I know we have a complicated history," he said, his words tumbling out in a rush. "But you need to be careful. I've uncovered something, and I think you're in danger." Before James could elaborate, the line went dead. Emily's attempts to call back went straight to voicemail. Her heart pounding, she tried to make sense of his cryptic warning. What had James discovered? And what did it have to do with the smear campaign against her? As the days wore on and the controversy showed no signs of abating, Emily felt the weight of despair threatening to crush her spirit. She thought of giving up, of retreating from the public eye and abandoning her dreams of changing the industry. It was in this moment of darkness that Emily received an unexpected visitor. Sarah Thompson, her mother, arrived at her office unannounced, her eyes blazing with the same fire that had sustained her through years of hardship. "Emily Rose Thompson," Sarah said, her voice firm as she took her daughter's face in her weathered hands. "I did not raise you to give up when things get tough. You are stronger than this. You are better than this. And you are not alone." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she embraced her mother. Sarah's unwavering faith, the strength that had carried them through years of poverty and struggle, filled Emily with renewed determination. "You're right, Mama," Emily whispered, wiping her eyes. "I've come too far to back down now. It's time to fight back." With her mother's support and Eleanor's guidance, Emily began to methodically address each accusation leveled against her. She invited independent auditors to examine her business practices, opened her books to scrutiny, and arranged for journalists to interview her workers and the communities she partnered with. But Emily knew that simply defending herself wasn't enough. She needed to find the source of these attacks and expose the truth. As she dug deeper, a complex web of corporate rivalries and old grudges began to emerge. Late one night, as Emily pored over documents in her office, she received an anonymous email. The message was brief, but its implications were staggering. The truth lies in the Blackwood archives. Look for Project Phoenix. Be careful who you trust. Emily's mind raced. The Blackwood archives? Project Phoenix? What did James's family have to do with the attacks against her? And where was James now? As she contemplated her next move, Emily realized that she was standing at a crossroads. The path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, but it also held the promise of vindication and the opportunity to effect real change in an industry desperately in need of reform. Taking a deep breath, Emily made her decision. She would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. But she wouldn't do it alone. It was time to assemble a team she could trust, people who shared her vision and her commitment to justice. First, she reached out to Zoe, a brilliant young designer from her mentorship program who had a knack for investigative research. Then, she contacted Marcus, a former journalist turned PR specialist who had always been sympathetic to her cause. Finally, she called on the one person who knew the Blackwood family better than anyone else, James's younger sister, Olivia, who had secretly remained in touch with Emily over the years. As Emily briefed her unlikely team on the situation, she felt a glimmer of hope. Together, they would unravel the mystery behind Project Phoenix and expose those who sought to destroy her. "This isn't just about clearing my name," Emily told them, her voice filled with passion. "This is about fighting for integrity in an industry that's lost its way. It's about showing the world that fashion can be a force for good, that success doesn't have to come at the expense of ethics." Zoe, Marcus, and Olivia nodded, their faces set with determination. They understood the risks, but they also recognized the importance of what they were about to undertake. As the team began their clandestine investigation, Emily threw herself back into her work with renewed vigor. She refused to let the controversy derail her mission. If anything, the attacks only strengthened her resolve to prove that her vision for a more inclusive, ethical fashion industry was not only possible but necessary. She launched a new initiative, Fashion Forward, which focused on sustainable practices and technological innovations in clothing production. The program caught the attention of several influential environmental organizations who saw in Emily a potential ally in their fight against the fashion industry's notorious pollution and waste. But even as Emily worked to rebuild her reputation and expand her positive impact, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Strange occurrences began to plague her, important documents went missing, her computer showed signs of being hacked, and she often spotted the same nondescript car following her through the city. One evening, as Emily was working late in her office, she heard a noise in the hallway. Cautiously, she opened her door to investigate and found herself face to face with Alexander Reeves. "Emily," he said, his usual charm replaced by an urgency that set her on edge. "We need to talk. I know about Project Phoenix, and I think I know why you're being targeted." Before Emily could respond, the elevator dinged, and the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the empty floor. Alexander's eyes widened in panic. "Not here," he whispered, grabbing her arm. "It's not safe. Meet me tomorrow at dawn, at the old lighthouse on Staten Island. Come alone, and tell no one." With that, Alexander disappeared down the emergency stairs, leaving Emily stunned and confused. As she locked herself back in her office, her mind raced with questions. Could she trust Alexander? Was this a trap, or was he genuinely trying to help her? As the night deepened, Emily found herself at a crossroads once again. Should she meet Alexander and potentially uncover the truth behind the attacks against her? Or was she walking into a dangerous situation that could jeopardize everything she had fought for? The decision weighed heavily on her as she gazed out at the glittering New York skyline. In the reflection of the window, Emily saw not just herself, but the faces of all those who had believed in her, supported her, and depended on her success. Her mother, Eleanor, the young interns and designers she had mentored, they were all counting on her to see this through. With a deep breath, Emily made her choice. She would meet Alexander, but not alone. It was time to trust in the team she had assembled and face whatever challenges lay ahead together. As she sent out a coded message to Zoe, Marcus, and Olivia, outlining her plan for the morning, Emily felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. Whatever happened at that lighthouse, she knew it would be a turning point in her journey. The girl from the Bronx who had once been scorned by society's elite was about to uncover a truth that could shake the foundations of the fashion world. And as the first light of dawn began to break over the city, Emily Thompson prepared herself for a confrontation that would test her courage, her integrity, and her unwavering belief in the power of second chances. Little did she know that the revelations awaiting her at the Staten Island lighthouse would not only change her life forever but would set in motion a chain of events that would reverberate through the highest echelons of power in New York City and beyond. As Emily gathered her things and prepared to leave her office, she paused for a moment, her hand resting on the doorknob. She thought of how far she had come, of the obstacles she had overcome, and of the dreams she still held close to her heart. Whatever the coming day might bring, she knew one thing for certain: she would face it with the same grace, determination, and compassion that had brought her this far. With a final glance at the city she loved, Emily stepped out into the night, ready to write the next chapter in her extraordinary story. The dawn was breaking, and with it, the promise of truth, justice, and a new beginning for Emily Thompson and all those whose lives she had touched. The old lighthouse on Staten Island stood sentinel against the pre-dawn sky, its weathered facade a stark contrast to the sleek modernity of Manhattan visible across the water. As Emily Thompson approached, her heart pounding in her chest, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into a turning point in her life. Behind her, hidden in the shadows, Zoe, Marcus, and Olivia took up their positions. They had argued against Emily meeting Alexander alone, insisting on being nearby in case things went south. Now, as Emily climbed the winding path to the lighthouse, she was grateful for their presence. Alexander Reeves was waiting at the top, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled, dark circles under his eyes betraying a lack of sleep. When he saw Emily, relief washed over his face. "You came," he said, his voice hoarse. "Thank God." "Emily, I..." But before he could continue, a voice cut through the air, cold and familiar. "Well, isn't this touching?" Emily whirled around to see Victoria Blackwood emerging from the shadows, a triumphant smile on her face. Behind her, two burly men in dark suits blocked the exit. "Mrs. Blackwood," Emily said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "What is this about?" Victoria's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Oh, my dear. Did you really think you could challenge the established order and get away with it? Project Phoenix was designed to put upstarts like you in their place." As Victoria spoke, pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place in Emily's mind. The smear campaign, the mysterious attacks on her business, the sense of being watched, it had all been orchestrated by the Blackwood matriarch. "But why?" Emily demanded. "I've done nothing to you." Victoria's eyes flashed with anger. "Nothing? You dared to rise above your station. You threatened the very foundations of our society. And worst of all, you turned my own son against me." At the mention of James, Emily's heart clenched. "Where is he? What have you done to him?" A cruel smile played on Victoria's lips. "James is indisposed. Let's just say he's learning the consequences of defying family loyalty." As Victoria spoke, Alexander edged closer to Emily. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't know it would go this far. I was just supposed to get close to you, to find your weaknesses. But then I saw what you were really trying to do, and I couldn't be part of destroying that." Emily's mind reeled. Alexander had been working for Victoria all along? But before she could process this betrayal, Victoria continued, her voice dripping with disdain. "Project Phoenix was meant to be the ultimate safeguard for our way of life. A network of the elite, working together to maintain our power and keep people like you in your place. But you, Emily Thompson, you've proven annoyingly resilient." As Victoria ranted, Emily caught a flash of movement from the corner of her eye. Her team was moving into position, ready to act. She just needed to keep Victoria talking. "So what now?" Emily asked, taking a step forward. You'll what? Destroy me? Ruin everything I've built? Victoria's laugh was cold. Oh, my dear. Destruction is so inelegant. No, we have much bigger plans for you. But before Victoria could elaborate, chaos erupted. Zoe and Marcus burst from their hiding spots, tackling Victoria's bodyguards. Olivia appeared as if from thin air, a camera in hand, recording every word. In the ensuing struggle, Alexander grabbed Emily's arm. We have to go. Now. They raced down the lighthouse stairs, the sounds of struggle echoing behind them. As they reached the bottom, a familiar figure stepped out of the shadows. James! Emily gasped. James Blackwood looked haggard, a bruise darkening his jaw, but his eyes were clear and determined. Emily, I'm so sorry. I tried to warn you, but they caught me. We need to get you out of here. As they ran towards James's waiting car, Emily's mind whirled. But my team. They'll be fine, James assured her. Olivia has everything on camera. We're taking this straight to the authorities. As they sped away from the lighthouse, Emily's phone buzzed with a message from Zoe. We're safe. Got everything. Meet at the safe house. Hours later, as the sun rose over New York City, Emily sat in a nondescript apartment, surrounded by her unlikely team of allies. Zoe, Marcus, and Olivia were busy compiling evidence, while James paced nervously by the window. Alexander, looking both ashamed and determined, approached Emily. I know I can never fully make up for my part in this, he said softly. But I want to help make it right. Whatever it takes. Emily studied him for a moment, then nodded. We can use all the help we can get. But Alexander? If you ever betray my trust again. He held up his hands. I know. I swear, I'm on your side now. For good. As the team worked, the full scope of Project Phoenix began to emerge. It wasn't just Victoria Blackwood, it was a consortium of old money families and corporate giants, all working together to maintain their grip on power. They had infiltrated media outlets, manipulated markets, and crushed anyone who threatened their dominance. This is bigger than just the fashion industry, Marcus said, his eyes wide as he scrolled through documents. This goes all the way to the top, politicians, judges, CEOs. Emily felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She had started this journey wanting to make a difference in fashion, but now she held in her hands the power to expose corruption at the highest levels of society. What do we do with all of this? Zoe asked, looking to Emily for guidance. Emily took a deep breath, her mind racing. She thought of her mother, of Eleanor, of all the people who had believed in her when the world told her she wasn't good enough. She thought of the young designers and workers she had promised to protect and uplift. We take it public, she said, her voice firm. All of it. We use every platform we have, every connection we've made. We shine a light so bright on this corruption that they have nowhere to hide. The room fell silent as the magnitude of what they were about to do sank in. Then, one by one, they nodded in agreement. It won't be easy, James warned. They'll come at us with everything they have. Emily squared her shoulders. Then we'll be ready. We've come too far to back down now. Over the next weeks, Emily and her team worked tirelessly to prepare their exposé. They reached out to trusted journalists, gathered supporting evidence, and prepared for the inevitable backlash. As they worked, Emily found unexpected allies in the most unlikely places. Former rivals in the fashion industry, impressed by her integrity, offered their support. Young influencers and activists rallied around her cause, spreading the word through social media. But the forces aligned against them were powerful and ruthless. As the day of their planned reveal approached, the attacks intensified. Emily's company was hit with frivolous lawsuits, her team members were followed and harassed, and vicious rumors spread through the tabloids. Through it all, Emily remained steadfast. She threw herself into her work, refusing to let the pressure derail her mission. Her latest collection, inspired by the struggle they were facing, was a defiant celebration of resilience and truth. The night before they were set to go public with their revelations, Emily found herself alone in her office, looking out over the city she loved. The weight of what they were about to do pressed heavily on her. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see Eleanor entering, a gentle smile on her face. "I thought I might find you here," Eleanor said, crossing the room to stand beside her granddaughter. "How are you holding up, my dear?" Emily sighed, letting her guard down for the first time in weeks. "I'm scared, Grandma. What if we're making a mistake? What if this destroys everything we've worked for?" Eleanor took Emily's hand in hers, her touch comforting and familiar. "Emily, do you remember what I told you when you first started this journey? True success means lifting others up along with you. Tomorrow, you have the chance to lift up an entire society, to give voice to those who have been silenced for too long." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she embraced her grandmother. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." As dawn broke over New York City, Emily stood before a sea of cameras and reporters, her team flanking her on either side. With a deep breath, she began to speak, her voice clear and unwavering. "Ladies and gentlemen, what I am about to share with you will shake the very foundations of our society. But it is a truth that must be told, a light that must be shown into the darkest corners of power and privilege." As Emily laid bare the extent of Project Phoenix's corruption, gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. She presented evidence of market manipulation, political bribery, and systematic oppression of up-and-coming talents across various industries. "This isn't just about fashion," Emily declared, her eyes blazing with conviction. "This is about the very soul of our society. It's about whether we will continue to allow a select few to control the destinies of millions, or whether we will stand up and demand a world where everyone has a fair chance to succeed." As she spoke, Emily could see the shock and outrage spreading through the audience. Phones lit up as journalists rushed to break the story, social media exploded with reactions, and in boardrooms and mansions across the city, the powerful began to panic. But even as she delivered the killing blow to Project Phoenix, Emily offered a message of hope. "This is our opportunity to rebuild," she said, her voice softening. "To create an industry, a society, that values integrity, innovation, and inclusivity. I stand here today not just as an accuser, but as someone committed to being part of the solution." She outlined her vision for a new kind of corporate responsibility, one that prioritized ethical practices, sustainability, and community investment. She challenged other business leaders to join her in this commitment, to use their influence for positive change. As Emily concluded her speech, the crowd erupted in a mix of applause and frenzied questions. But before she could respond, a commotion at the back of the room caught her attention. Victoria Blackwood, her face a mask of fury, was being led away in handcuffs, flanked by FBI agents. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and Emily saw in Victoria's gaze a mixture of hatred and grudging respect. In the chaos that followed, Emily found herself swept into a whirlwind of interviews, legal depositions, and strategy meetings. The fallout from their revelations was immediate and far-reaching. Stock markets fluctuated wildly as implicated companies saw their shares plummet. Political scandals erupted as evidence of corruption came to light. Through it all, Emily remained a steady voice of reason and hope. She used her platform to advocate for systemic changes, pushing for stronger regulations and more transparent business practices. But the path forward was not without its challenges. Many of those implicated in Project Phoenix fought back viciously, using their remaining influence to try and discredit Emily and her team. There were threats, both veiled and overt, and moments when the pressure seemed almost too much to bear. It was during one of these moments of doubt that Emily received an unexpected visitor. As she sat in her office late one night, poring over legal documents, a soft knock at the door made her look up. To her surprise, it was James Blackwood. He looked different, humbler, somehow, the arrogance of privilege replaced by a quiet determination. "Emily," he said softly. "I hope I'm not interrupting." She gestured for him to enter, curious about what had brought him here. James took a seat across from her, his eyes filled with a mix of admiration and regret. "I wanted to thank you," he began. "What you've done, it's incredible. You've shown a courage that I never had." Emily studied him for a moment. "It wasn't just me, James. It took all of us, working together, to make this happen." He nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "That's what I've come to realize. And that's why I'm here. I want to help, Emily. Really help, not just with empty words or money, but with action." As James outlined his plan, to use his family's remaining influence to push for reforms, to work with Emily's foundation to create opportunities for underprivileged youth, Emily felt a glimmer of hope. This was the change she had dreamed of, spreading beyond her immediate circle, inspiring others to take a stand. In the months that followed, Emily watched with a mixture of awe and determination as the world she had known began to transform. The fashion industry, shaken to its core by the revelations, began to embrace more ethical practices. Young designers from diverse backgrounds found doors opening that had once been firmly closed. But it wasn't just fashion. The ripple effects of Project Phoenix's exposure touched every corner of society. There were investigations, resignations, and a growing public demand for transparency and accountability. Through it all, Emily remained true to her roots. She expanded her mentorship programs, partnered with community organizations, and used her influence to amplify voices that had long been silenced. 1 year after the fateful press conference, Emily stood on a stage once again, this time to accept a humanitarian award for her work in corporate ethics and social responsibility. As she looked out at the audience, she saw faces both familiar and new, her mother and Eleanor beaming with pride, her team standing tall and confident, and a new generation of designers and entrepreneurs inspired by her example. "A year ago, we stood at a crossroads," Emily began, her voice strong and clear. "We faced a choice between accepting the status quo or fighting for a better future. Today, I stand before you not as someone who has all the answers, but as someone who believes in the power of collective action and unwavering integrity." She paused, her eyes scanning the room. "Our work is far from over. There will always be those who seek to exploit, to divide, to maintain systems of inequality. But if this past year has taught us anything, it's that when we stand together, when we refuse to be silenced or bought, we have the power to create real, lasting change." As applause filled the room, Emily felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had faced her greatest fears, confronted powerful enemies, and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. The girl from the Bronx who had once been scorned by society's elite had become a beacon of hope and a catalyst for change. But even as she basked in the glow of recognition, Emily knew that this was just another beginning. There were still battles to be fought, lives to be improved, and a vision of a more just and equitable world to be realized. As she left the stage, Emily's phone buzzed with a message. It was from Zoe, and contained only 4 words: "We've got another lead." Emily smiled, feeling the familiar surge of determination. The next chapter of her journey was about to begin, and she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, with courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to making the world a better place, one step at a time. The message from Zoe burned in Emily's mind as she made her way through the crowd of well-wishers at the award ceremony. We've got another lead. For simple words that promise the next chapter in their ongoing fight for justice and transparency. As Emily slipped away from the gala, exchanging her elegant gown for more practical attire, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she'd come. The Emily of a year ago would have been overwhelmed by the prospect of diving back into the fray so soon after a major victory. But now, she felt a calm determination settle over her. This was her calling, her purpose. In a dimly lit coffee shop on the Lower East Side, Emily met with her core team, Zoe, Marcus, Olivia, and to her surprise, James Blackwood. The atmosphere was tense with anticipation. "What have you found?" Emily asked, her eyes fixed on Zoe. Zoe slid a folder across the table. "Remember how we thought Project Phoenix was just about maintaining the status quo? Well, it goes deeper than that. We've uncovered evidence of a plan to monopolize emerging technologies in the fashion industry. They're not just trying to keep people down, they're actively stifling innovation that could revolutionize ethical and sustainable practices." As Emily flipped through the documents, her heart sank. The names listed as part of this new conspiracy included some of the very people who had publicly pledged support for reform in the wake of the Project Phoenix revelations. "They're adapting," James said, his voice tight with frustration. "Learning from their mistakes. This time, they're hiding behind a veneer of progressivism while still maintaining their stranglehold on the industry." Emily leaned back, her mind racing. "So what's our move? We can't just expose them again. They'll be expecting that." Marcus leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "I have an idea. Instead of just exposing them, why don't we beat them at their own game? Emily, your company has been at the forefront of ethical fashion tech. What if we accelerate our plans? Launch a major innovation that renders their monopoly obsolete before it even begins?" The table fell silent as the implications of Marcus's suggestion sank in. It was bold, risky, and exactly the kind of move that had made Emily a force to be reckoned with in the industry. "It won't be easy," Olivia cautioned. "We'll be painting an even bigger target on our backs. And the financial risk." "I'll back it," James interjected, surprising everyone. "Whatever resources you need, I'm in. It's time I put my family's wealth to good use." Emily looked around at her team, feeling a surge of gratitude for their unwavering support. "All right," she said, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Let's change the world. Again." The next few months were a whirlwind of activity. Emily threw herself into the development of a revolutionary new fabric, one that was not only completely sustainable and ethically produced but also adaptable to the wearer's needs. Temperature regulation, size adjustment, even color changes, all controlled by a simple app. But as news of their project leaked, a calculated move on Marcus's part to generate buzz, the opposition began to mobilize. Emily found herself facing a barrage of legal challenges, smear campaigns, and even attempts to poach her top designers. It was during this tumultuous time that Emily received an unexpected call from her mother, Sarah. "Mija," Sarah's voice was tight with worry. "There are men asking questions in the neighborhood. About you, about our family. I think they're trying to dig up dirt." Emily felt a cold knot of fear in her stomach. She had always known that her enemies might stoop to such tactics, but to target her family, her roots? It felt like a violation of an unspoken code. "Don't worry, Mama," Emily assured her, even as her mind raced with contingency plans. "I'll take care of it. Just be careful, okay?" As she hung up, Emily found herself face to face with Eleanor, who had been silently observing from the doorway. "They're getting desperate," Eleanor said, her voice calm but her eyes flashing with anger. "You've got them running scared, my dear." Emily nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavily on her shoulders. I never wanted to put anyone in danger. Maybe I should back off, find another way. Eleanor crossed the room swiftly, taking Emily's hands in her own. Emily Thompson, you listen to me. What you're doing isn't just about fashion or business. It's about standing up for what's right, about creating a world where people like us, people who weren't born with silver spoons in their mouths, have a fair shot. Your mother and I? We couldn't be prouder. And we're tougher than you. Think. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she embraced her grandmother. Thank you, she whispered. I don't know what I'd do without you. With renewed determination, Emily redoubled her efforts. She implemented stringent security measures to protect her team and their families. She reached out to trusted media contacts, getting ahead of potential smear campaigns by being transparent about her past and her family's humble beginnings. As the launch date for their revolutionary fabric approached, the pressure intensified. There were attempts to sabotage their production lines, cyber attacks on their systems, and even a mysterious fire at one of their warehouses. But for every setback, there was a triumph. Emily's transparency about her background had struck a chord with the public. #IStandWithEmily began trending on social media, with people sharing their own stories of overcoming adversity. The night before the launch, Emily found herself unable to sleep. She slipped out of her apartment and went for a walk, eventually finding herself in her old neighborhood in the Bronx. As she wandered the familiar streets, memories washing over her, she spotted a group of young girls huddled around a smartphone. Curious, she edged closer, overhearing their excited chatter. Did you see Emily Thompson's latest post? One girl exclaimed. She's launching something big tomorrow. My mom says she's changing the whole fashion industry. I want to be just like her when I grow up, another girl said dreamily. She shows that girls like us can make it big. Emily felt her throat tighten with emotion. This, she realized, was what it was all about. Not the accolades, not the business success, but the impact she was having on the next generation. She was showing them that their dreams were valid, that they had the power to shape their own destinies. With a renewed sense of purpose, Emily returned home, ready to face whatever challenges the new day might bring. The launch event was a spectacle unlike anything the fashion world had seen. Held in a renovated warehouse in Brooklyn, it combined high-tech displays with community involvement. Local artists showcased their work, and students from Emily's mentorship programs were given prominent roles in the presentation. As Emily took the stage, wearing a dress made from the very fabric they were launching, the room fell silent in anticipation. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice strong and clear, today, we're not just launching a new product. We're launching a new era in fashion. An era where style and substance go hand in hand, where looking good means doing good. She went on to demonstrate the fabric's capabilities, drawing gasps and applause from the audience. But it was her closing remarks that truly captured the essence of the moment. This technology, this innovation, it doesn't belong to me, or to my company alone. It belongs to all of us. To every dreamer who's been told they don't belong, to every innovator who's been shut out of the industry, to every consumer who's wanted to make ethical choices but found them out of reach. Today, we level the playing field. Today, we prove that fashion can be a force for good in the world. The response was overwhelming. Orders flooded in from major retailers and small boutiques alike. Social media exploded with praise and excitement. But more importantly, there was a palpable sense that something had shifted in the industry. The old guard, those who had clung to exclusivity and exploitation, suddenly found themselves on the wrong side of history. In the days that followed, Emily barely had time to catch her breath. There were interviews to give, partnerships to negotiate, and a constant stream of messages from people inspired by her journey. But amidst the whirlwind of success, Emily remained grounded. She made time to visit her mother, to have dinner with Eleanor, to mentor the young designers in her program. She never forgot where she came from, and she was determined to use her success to lift others up. It was during one of these mentoring sessions that Emily received news that would once again reshape her world. Olivia burst into the room, her face pale with shock. "Emily, you need to see this," she said, thrusting her tablet forward. On the screen was a breaking news report. James Blackwood had been arrested, accused of embezzlement and fraud. The evidence, according to the report, was overwhelming. Emily felt as if the floor had dropped out from under her. James had been a key ally in their recent efforts, a friend she had come to trust. Could it all have been a lie? As she and her team dug deeper, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. The charges against James seemed too perfect, the evidence too neatly packaged. It reeked of a setup. "They're trying to discredit us," Marcus said, his voice tight with anger. "By taking down James, they're hoping to cast doubt on everything we've accomplished." Emily nodded, her mind racing. "We need to fight this. Not just for James, but for everything we stand for. If they can do this to him, none of us are safe." And so, even as she navigated the challenges of her company's explosive growth, Emily found herself drawn into a new battle. She assembled a team of top lawyers, worked tirelessly to uncover the truth behind the charges, and used her platform to rally public support for James. It was a grueling process, filled with setbacks and moments of doubt. There were times when even Emily wondered if they were fighting a losing battle. But she refused to give up, driven by a deep-seated belief in justice and loyalty to those who had stood by her. Months into the legal battle, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A junior employee at one of the firms involved in the conspiracy against them came forward with evidence of document tampering and witness intimidation. It was the key they needed to unravel the entire case. The day James was exonerated was a bittersweet victory for Emily. While she was overjoyed to see justice served, the ordeal had taken its toll. James was a changed man, more subdued, his faith in the system he'd once been a part of irrevocably shaken. "Thank you," he said simply, when Emily visited him after the final hearing. "I don't know if I could have gotten through this without you." Emily squeezed his hand, feeling a complex mix of emotions. "We look out for our own," she said softly. "That's what sets us apart from them. We don't abandon people when things get tough." As they walked out of the courthouse together, facing a sea of flashing cameras and shouted questions, Emily felt a sense of déjà vu. Once again, she found herself at the center of a media storm. Once again, she had faced down powerful enemies and emerged victorious. But this time was different. As she looked out at the crowd, she didn't see just journalists and curious onlookers. She saw hope. She saw people wearing clothes made with her revolutionary fabric, young designers clutching portfolios emblazoned with her company's logo, and signs expressing support not just for her, but for the values she represented. In that moment, Emily understood that her journey had become something larger than herself. She had become a symbol, a beacon of hope for those who dared to dream of a more equitable, more innovative, more compassionate industry. As she prepared to address the waiting reporters, Emily felt a calm settle over her. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever battles she might have to fight, she knew she wouldn't be facing them alone. She had built more than a successful company or a personal brand. She had built a movement. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice ringing out clear and strong, "today is not just about one man's exoneration. It's about the triumph of truth over deception, of innovation over stagnation, of community over exclusivity. We've shown that when we stand together, when we refuse to be silenced or intimidated, we can create real, lasting change." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the crowd, making eye contact with as many people as she could. "But our work is far from over. There are still those who would prioritize profit over people, who would stifle innovation to maintain their power. To them, I say this: we're not backing down. We're just getting started. As cheers erupted from the crowd, Emily felt a surge of energy. She thought of the young girls in her old neighborhood, of the aspiring designers in her mentorship program, of her mother and grandmother who had sacrificed so much to give her a chance. She thought of James, standing beside her, humbled but unbroken. This, she realized, was her true legacy. Not the awards, not the business success, but the lives she had touched, the hope she had inspired, the change she had set in motion. As she stepped away from the microphones, already planning her next moves, Emily Thompson, the girl from the Bronx who had been scorned by society's elite, knew that she had found her true calling. She wasn't just a fashion designer or a businesswoman. She was a catalyst for change, a voice for the voiceless, a bridge between worlds. And as the sun set over New York City, casting a golden glow over the skyline she loved, Emily allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. She had faced her demons, overcome seemingly insurmountable odds, and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. The future stretched out before her, full of possibilities and challenges. But Emily Thompson was ready. Ready to lead, ready to inspire, ready to continue fighting for a world where everyone, regardless of their background, had the chance to shine. As she walked away from the courthouse, surrounded by her team and supporters, Emily felt a sense of excitement building within her. The next chapter of her journey was about to begin, and she couldn't wait to see where it would lead. 5 years had passed since the dramatic courthouse scene that had cemented Emily Thompson's status as a revolutionary force in the fashion industry. The world had changed in ways both subtle and profound, and Emily had been at the forefront of that change, pushing boundaries, challenging norms, and inspiring a new generation of dreamers and doers. On a crisp autumn morning, not unlike the day she had first collided with James Blackwood on a busy New York street, Emily stood before a mirror in her old apartment in the Bronx. She smoothed down the fabric of her dress, a creation of her own design, made from the revolutionary material that had changed the face of fashion. "You ready for this, Mija?" Sarah Thompson asked, entering the room with tears glistening in her eyes. Emily turned to her mother, feeling a wave of emotion wash over her. "I don't know if I'll ever be ready, Mama," she said with a soft laugh. "But I know it's right." Today was no ordinary day. It was Emily's wedding day, and in true Emily Thompson fashion, it was going to be an event that would redefine expectations and challenge traditions. As Emily made her final preparations, her mind wandered back over the journey that had brought her to this moment. The triumphs and trials of the past 5 years had shaped her in ways she could never have imagined. Her company, once a scrappy upstart, had grown into a global powerhouse, not just in fashion but in ethical business practices and technological innovation. The revolutionary fabric they had launched had indeed changed the industry, spawning countless imitators but remaining at the forefront thanks to Emily's relentless drive for improvement and innovation. But it wasn't just her business success that defined Emily's legacy. Her mentorship programs had expanded exponentially, providing opportunities for thousands of underprivileged youth to enter the fashion industry. The Emily Thompson Foundation had become a major force for social change, funding everything from sustainable fashion initiatives to education programs in underserved communities. And through it all, Emily had remained true to her roots. She had never forgotten where she came from, and she used her platform to continually shine a light on issues of inequality and injustice. There had been challenges, of course. The old guard hadn't given up without a fight. There were lawsuits, smear campaigns, and even a few threats to her safety. But with each obstacle, Emily had grown stronger, more determined, and more beloved by those she fought to uplift. A soft knock at the door interrupted Emily's reverie. Eleanor entered, looking regal in a silvery gown that Emily had designed especially for her. "Oh, my darling," Eleanor breathed, her eyes misting over. "You look absolutely radiant." Emily embraced her grandmother, feeling a surge of gratitude for the woman who had believed in her from the start. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, Grandma," she whispered. Eleanor pulled back, cupping Emily's face in her hands. "You did this, Emily. Your strength, your compassion, your unwavering integrity, that's what brought you here. I just had the privilege of watching you soar." As the 3 generations of Thompson women shared a moment of quiet reflection, another knock came at the door. This time, it was Zoe, looking sleek and professional in her role as Emily's chief of staff and maid of honor. "It's time," Zoe said with a smile. "Are you ready to make history again, boss?" Emily took a deep breath, smoothing down her dress one last time. "Let's do this." The wedding venue was a far cry from the glittering ballrooms where Emily had once felt so out of place. Instead, she had chosen to transform an abandoned factory in her old neighborhood into a stunning event space. Local artists had been commissioned to create installations, and students from Emily's mentorship programs had been involved in every aspect of the planning and execution. As Emily made her way to the ceremony, she was struck by the faces she saw. There were fashion icons and business tycoons, yes, but also community leaders, former colleagues from her waitressing days, and families from her old neighborhood. It was a true representation of the bridges Emily had built throughout her career. And waiting for her at the end of the aisle, looking dashing in a suit made from the same revolutionary fabric as her dress, was James Blackwood. Their journey to this moment had been far from straightforward. After the ordeal of his false imprisonment and exoneration, James had needed time to heal, to rediscover himself outside of the Blackwood family legacy. He and Emily had remained friends, supporting each other through various challenges, but it wasn't until 2 years ago that their relationship had blossomed into something more. Now, as Emily walked towards him, she saw in James's eyes the same mix of awe, love, and shared purpose that had drawn them together. They were partners in every sense of the word, challenging and supporting each other, united in their vision for a more equitable and innovative future. The ceremony was a beautiful blend of traditions, honoring both Emily's roots and the multicultural world she had embraced. But it was during the vows that the true depth of their partnership became clear. "Emily," James began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "when we first met, I was a man trapped by expectations and prejudices I didn't even realize I had. You opened my eyes, challenged me to be better, to do better. You showed me what true strength and integrity look like. I stand here today not just as your husband, but as your partner in all things. Together, we'll continue to push boundaries, to fight for what's right, and to create a world where everyone has the chance to shine as brightly as you do." Emily, tears glistening in her eyes, responded, "James, our journey has been anything but conventional. We've faced trials that would have broken most people, but they only made us stronger. You've seen me at my highest highs and my lowest lows, and you've stood by me through it all. I promise to be that same rock for you, to continue challenging you, inspiring you, and loving you with every fiber of my being. Together, we'll write a new chapter, not just for us, but for all those who dare to dream of a better world." As they sealed their vows with a kiss, the assembled crowd erupted in cheers and applause. It was more than just a celebration of love, it was a testament to the power of perseverance, of staying true to one's values, and of the transformative power of compassion and integrity. The reception that followed was a joyous affair, blending high fashion with community spirit. Gourmet dishes were served alongside street food from local vendors. World-renowned musicians shared the stage with up-and-coming artists from Emily's old neighborhood. It was a perfect representation of the world Emily had worked so hard to create, one where barriers were broken down and everyone had a seat at the table. As the night wore on, Emily found a quiet moment to slip away from the festivities. She made her way to a balcony overlooking the city she loved, the place that had shaped her, challenged her, and ultimately embraced her. She was soon joined by Eleanor, who wrapped a shawl around her granddaughter's shoulders. Quite a journey you've had, my dear, Eleanor said softly. Emily leaned into her grandmother's embrace. I keep thinking about that day you first came to the diner, Grandma. How lost I felt, how impossible everything seemed. Did you ever imagine we'd end up here? Eleanor chuckled. Oh, I had a feeling you were destined for greatness. But this? She gestured to the celebration below, to the city skyline where several buildings now bore the Thompson name. This, my darling, is all you. You took every hardship, every setback, and turned it into fuel for your fire. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching the city lights twinkle. Then Eleanor spoke again, her voice taking on a more serious tone. You know, Emily, your grandfather, your father's father, he came from a world not too different from the Blackwoods. Old money, set in his ways. When Michael fell in love with Sarah, Harold couldn't see past his own prejudices. It tore our family apart. Emily turned to her grandmother, surprised. Eleanor had rarely spoken about her late husband. What happened? She asked softly. Eleanor's eyes were distant, lost in memory. Harold died never having reconciled with Michael. It was the biggest regret of his life, and mine. When I lost everything, when I finally understood the damage that kind of thinking can do, that's when I knew I had to find you. To make things right. Tears welled up in Emily's eyes as she hugged her grandmother fiercely. Oh, Grandma. You did. You've done so much more than make things right. Eleanor wiped her eyes, smiling through her tears. What I'm trying to say, my dear, is that you've healed more than just your own wounds. You've healed our family's legacy. You've taken the best of all of us, Sarah's resilience, Michael's passion, even a bit of Harold's business acumen, and you've created something beautiful. Something that will outlast all of us. As if on cue, a burst of laughter from below drew their attention. Emily looked down to see a group of young girls, students from her mentorship program, clustered around Sarah, who was regaling them with stories, her eyes shining with pride as she gestured towards the party. You've given them hope, Emily, Eleanor said softly. Not just the girls in your programs, but everyone who's ever felt like they didn't belong. You've shown them that with hard work, integrity, and a little bit of Thompson stubbornness, anything is possible. Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest. We did it together, Grandma. All of us. And we're just getting started. As they made their way back to the party, Emily was struck by a sense of rightness, of coming full circle. She had faced down her demons, confronted those who had once scorned her, and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. She had built a legacy of love, love for her craft, love for her community, and love for the family she had both been born into and created along the way. The night wound down, guests slowly trickling out into the early morning hours. As Emily and James prepared to leave for their honeymoon, a working trip that would combine fashion shows in Paris with community outreach in developing countries, they found themselves surrounded by their core team. Zoe, Marcus, and Olivia, along with a handful of new faces who had joined their crusade over the years, gathered around the newlyweds. There were tears and laughter, hugs and promises to stay in touch. But underlying it all was a sense of shared purpose, of a mission that was larger than any one of them. Don't worry, boss, Zoe said with a wink. We'll hold down the fort while you're gone. But don't be surprised if we've started a revolution or two by the time you get back. Emily laughed, feeling a surge of affection for her team. I'd expect nothing less. Just remember, innovation with integrity, fashion with compassion, they all chorused together, reciting the motto that had become their guiding principle. As Emily and James climbed into the waiting car, rose petals raining down around them, Emily took one last look at the gathering. She saw her mother and Eleanor, arms linked, watching her with pride. She saw her team, already huddled together, no doubt planning their next world-changing initiative. And beyond them, she saw the city she loved, the place that had shaped her, challenged her, and ultimately embraced her. In that moment, Emily Thompson Blackwood felt a profound sense of peace. She had taken the scorn, the rejection, the attempts to break her spirit, and she had alchemized them into something beautiful. She had not just survived, she had thrived, and in doing so, she had opened doors for countless others to follow in her footsteps. As the car pulled away, James squeezed her hand. "Ready for our next adventure, Mrs. Thompson Blackwood?" Emily smiled, feeling a familiar thrill of excitement and determination. "Always, Mr. Thompson Blackwood. Always." And as they drove off into the dawn of a new day, Emily knew that while one chapter of her story might be ending, another was just beginning. There would be new challenges to face, new barriers to break, new dreams to realize. But with the love of her family, the support of her team, and the fire that had always burned within her, Emily Thompson Blackwood was ready to take on whatever the future might hold. The girl from the Bronx who had once been scorned by society's elite had become a beacon of hope, a catalyst for change, and a living testament to the power of perseverance, integrity, and love. Her journey had been one of triumph and redemption, not just for herself, but for all those who dared to dream of a better, more inclusive world. As the sun rose over New York City, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, it heralded not just a new day, but a new era. An era shaped by the vision, passion, and indomitable spirit of a young woman who had refused to be defined by the expectations of others. An era of innovation, compassion, and boundless possibility. And at the heart of it all was Emily Thompson Blackwood, forever the girl from the Bronx, now a woman who had changed the world, one stitch, one dream, one act of kindness at a time.